This one was kind of a tough one to write. It'll get better. This one was kind of a tough one to write. Reflections on fatherhood, and this is simply embrace your surprises. My dad lived to be 88 years old. During the 57 years I knew him, he would occasionally say something to me that I never really understood until I had kids. And that was simply this: I am an amateur at this too. He was right. We dads are all amateurs no matter how many kids we have, because each child is unique. He was an amateur father with me. I'm an amateur son with him. We muddled through. Here's the best thing I know about muddling through: embrace your surprises. My dad lived through things I cannot even imagine. He grew up in the Depression, wearing government-issued clothes of which he was so ashamed it left scars with him his entire life. He was in the Merchant Marines during World War II. He was a pacifist who nonetheless saw the horrors of World War II and the necessity for helping those suffering because of it. He served on unarmed ships taking food and medical supplies from South America to India, China, and the Philippines. He was a strong man with a cotton-soft interior that I thought was pretty cool. Fatherhood. I always had mixed emotions about fatherhood. Michelle and I knew we were going to adopt a child. We were professionals. We had health insurance. We're dedicated. We can do this. Adopt a child, absolutely. So we did the paperwork. We went to classes. We had the inspections. And, of course, we were going to adopt locally. And we were good to go. Then we waited a while and got on with our lives. One day, the county called. They had a child and we were interested in learning more. Sure, we said. Well, he was a little failure to thrive, a little small, perhaps a little bit fetal alcohol, you know, the usual. And we said, sure. The day we met our son, he came running over to us, hugged us, and we were a family from that second. The county was very cool. They were going to try to push it so he could be with us by Christmas. Ryan came to our home on Christmas Eve. We'd only had a very short time to prepare. We put a boys' bedroom together in a day. You know, our children's warehouse and this and that. Let's get this stuff together. And we did. And he came to our home on Christmas Eve, and I was an amateur, and he did not care. Our daughter was born a few years later. She apparently wanted a brother in the house first. Fertility drugs be damned. She came to us in February 2007, and when she was born, the attending held her up for me to see, and Paige opened her eyes for the first time, and I looked into them, and I saw eternity. She looked into mine and smiled, and I was an amateur, and she didn't care. Reflections on fatherhood. I don't know anything about fatherhood. I know about diapers and feedings and lack of sleep and owies and blisters and softball and soccer and home and getting rid of the things that go bump in the night. I know about driving lessons and outgrown clothes. I know about the start of dating, the intricacies of school friendships, little girls and their friendships. Little girls and their friendships. And I don't want to solve for X. You solve for your own X. I couldn't do it the first time, and now I'm teaching you. Ask your mother. Our common principle, number 7, is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And that is so true. My father, my kids, embrace your surprises. On a trip to the Grand Canyon, we drove through Phoenix. My father grew up in Phoenix in the 1930s. 100 degrees in the summer, no air conditioning, dirt poor. He and his brother used to crawl under a fence in the back of a junkyard, steal a piece of iron, put it in a wagon, pull it to the front of the junkyard, and sell it. And if you do that enough times, you can collect a dime and get to see a movie in an air-conditioned theater. We drove by the little house he grew up in and the little school he attended. It was closed, had been closed for years, falling apart, graffiti on the walls and out in front was a flagpole, and we took a picture of my son standing on the base of the flagpole his father had faced when saluting that flag so many decades earlier. The interdependent web of existence of which we're all a part. My father's father, my paternal grandfather, died when I was 2 years old, and I never knew him. But I have one thing of his. I have a small battered suitcase with barber tools in it. The man was a barber, shave and a haircut, 2 bits. And somehow the kids were mostly fed. My mother's mother, my maternal grandfather, helped build Hughes Spruce Goose, worked on railroads, and somehow the kids were well fed. One grandfather I never knew, the other was a hero of mine. He used to let me drive his old Dodge truck and pound nails in the dirt he later had to try and pound out. One I knew, one I didn't. We're all amateurs. A few years ago, my father said he had something to tell me. He told me about his first marriage, a painful war marriage that was doomed from the start. My dad was on ships and rarely home. It was what it was. He mentioned there was a child, but he never looked for the child because during a bitter divorce, his wife told him the child was not his. I met that child a couple of weeks ago. A man now, of course, older than me, who lives in Washington State. He's had a good life, but mentioned when his mother died a few years ago, he found his birth certificate going through her things, and it was my dad's name on that certificate. And he decided that finding his father was something to add to his bucket list. And one day he started looking, and he found my dad's obituary. He was too late, but eventually decided to seek out any siblings. He found me, and we had a great meeting. And he found me, and I looked at him, and there's the Beechams. It's not like something that's like, that's him. There's my uncle standing there. I had a great father, and my brother had an absent one because of a bitter divorce. Dads, don't let your own pain move you to a new generation. Don't let your pain move to a new generation. Embrace your surprises. We're all amateurs. We live through the highs and the lows, the highs of the birth of a child, the highs of a hug, the highs of the hug of a father, the lows of giving pain to a father. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life is look in my father's eyes and tell him that his daughter had just passed away. Embrace your surprises. Reflections on fatherhood. I'm an amateur father and son and brother. But I'm learning. I know this doesn't have to be as hard as we often make it. I know the community can help. One thing Michelle and I were absolute on when we had kids, we would have some sort of religious understanding. We were sure that would not be infused with hellfire, brimstone, and exclusion. We found Summit and have been here ever since, and our kids are at home here. This is what community and parenthood is. These are the faces of friends of people traveling independently on the same road. Who knew? Embrace your surprises. I meet on Tuesday nights with another group of authors that are in San Diego. And I wrote a poem for them just for the heck of it about fathers and stuff and sent it to them. What would you like for Father's Day, Pop? You know what? I'd really like the garage cleaned. No, seriously, what would you like? Some shirts? No, I'd really like for the garage to be cleaned. The tools you use finally put away where they go. The ice chest clean and stacked on the shelves. The sports stuff put away. Yep, the garage clean. Doesn't cost anything. No card is needed. What about shorts and a belt? Oh, and the garage swept out too. That would be great. They have really nice shorts. Sure, kids, sure. Shorts are good. Love you, Pop. Love you too. We fathers are all amateur fathers. But it doesn't mean we can't be great amateurs. Embrace the surprises.